Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. According to the mayor, Anatoly Fedoruk, about 320 Ukrainians died at Russian hands in Bucha. There is not a single person in the entire town who has not had a family member or close friend murdered by the Russians. From Bucha, which has become a symbol of the war in Ukraine, here's our news team, Michal Chesniewski and Mykola Yefremenko.
Bucha is the symbol of the war in Ukraine. The Russians occupied this town near Kiev for about 3 weeks. They murdered and tortured civilians. Every day they came and counted us. They went into cellars and other hiding places where we were hiding and checked if any young people had appeared. They also said that if anyone went out into the street, they would shoot. They were young boys, 18 to 20 years old. We were afraid because they were standing over us with guns ready to shoot. They ordered the neighbours to cook food for the tank men. Then they locked them up. We don't know where these people are. I think they were taken away. Other neighbours went out into the street and they were shot. After a few days, we went out to collect the bodies, but they were gone. Where did they go? We don't know. Maybe they just burned them. They took one boy every day for torture. In the end, they brought him back dead. From 17 houses in our street, they killed 10 people. No light, no water. My mother recently turned 90. Now she is lying down and getting tired. She is cold and has no medicine. There are bodies lying in the school. In the other school, a little further away, there were rapes. When they stopped shooting, we stayed in hiding for several hours because we were afraid of further hostilities. The Russians are worse than the Mongolian hordes. They are monsters, not people. Everyone must turn their backs on them. They have no brakes. A boy went out into the street to walk his dog and they shot him. The woman screamed, "What are you doing? You have children too." And they laughed and drove off. These are supposed to be people? We have no data yet. We have only just started the investigation. We are identifying the bodies left in the street from DNA samples. The people who stayed here buried many bodies in temporary graves. We will dig them up later and identify the bodies. We also received the first report of a rape. A woman has given the name of the perpetrator. He will be sought by international institutions. There have been more such rapes, but it is up to the victims to report them. First, we have to clear the area of mines, and only then will the residents be able to return to their homes. Over these few days, our sappers have discovered more than First, we have to clear the area of mines, and only then will the residents be able to return to their homes. Over these few days, our sappers have discovered more than 4,000 explosives. These are shells, bullets, mines and booby traps. Most of them were where the occupants noticed the Ukrainian national symbol, i.e. in flats and offices. They even planted bombs in the headquarters of the fire brigade. According to the mayor of Bucha, about 2,500 Russian soldiers were stationed in the town. The Ukrainians attacked them with drones and artillery. From Bucha, Michal Chesniewski and Mykola Yefremenko.
Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki stressed that Russian crimes against Ukrainian civilians are a red alert for Europe and again called on the European Commission to impose real and painful sanctions on Russia. The United States has also announced further restrictions on Russian investments. And sanctions will also be extended to Vladimir Putin's adult children and family members of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called for Russia's expulsion from the United Nations Security Council.
Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki considers the European response so far as too weak and has called for further sanctions, including the confiscation of Russian oligarchs' property and Russian Federation assets in Western banks across the European Union. The Prime Minister pointed out that the exchange rate of the Russian currency has returned to pre-war levels, which means that Russia does not lose much after the introduction of European sanctions. He added that Poland had called for effective sanctions much earlier. Every day we were sounding the alarm that we could not wait, that we could not delay them a moment longer. So what were you waiting for, dear leaders of rich countries of the West? Just 4 weeks ago, even before the Bucha massacre, this could have been Poland's appeal. Today it is the appeal of the murdered, the killed, the starved, the slaughtered. NATO foreign ministers met in Brussels. North Atlantic Treaty Organization Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said we are entering a critical phase of the war.
Has changed his ambition to control the whole of Ukraine. And also to rewrite the international order. So we need to be prepared for a long haul. We need to support Ukraine, sustain our sanctions, and strengthen our defenses and our deterrence.
At the United Nations Security Council yesterday, the President of Ukraine called for the Russian Federation to be expelled from the Security Council. Zelensky presented a list of crimes the Russians have committed against Ukrainians. He spoke of women being raped in front of children and people in cars being smashed by tanks. Similar crimes are said to have occurred near Kharkiv, Mariupol and Kharkiv. Russian soldiers and those giving them orders must be held accountable for war crimes committed in Ukraine. All those who gave illegal orders and those who carried them out, killing people, must face a tribunal like the one at Nuremberg. The declaration of further sanctions came from the President of the European Parliament, Ursula von der Leyen. The fifth package of sanctions is to ban coal imports from Russia. She added that the recent discoveries of murdered civilians must be called a war crime.
These sanctions will not be our last sanctions. As I said already yesterday, yes, we've now banned coal. But now we have to look into oil, and we have to look into the revenues that Russia gets from the fossil fuels, and we really have to make an effort, for example, to take a share to the escrow, to an escrow banking system, so that we will really limit the source of revenues from Russia, from fossil fuels.
The United States has decided to provide Ukraine with an additional $100 million in security assistance. The support also includes anti-tank systems. America wants to impose further sanctions on Russia. White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki said this will be done in close consultation with the European and G7 countries.
Dollar package announced on March 12th, which are almost complete. Deliveries of the $800 million package the President announced on March 16th are actively occurring, and obviously the Department of Defense has also announced a range of equipment that is being provided. I'd also note that there are a range of mechanisms as it relates to accountability, and that relates to the President's strong statements about his view and belief that Russia and President Putin are guilty of war crimes and obviously the atrocities that have taken place.
In recent days, more and more countries have taken decisions to expel Russian diplomats from their countries. Greece recognised today 12 diplomats as undesirables. Yesterday, Latvia, Sweden and Denmark, among others, did so. Poland already recognised 45 Russian diplomats as spies at the end of March and expelled them from the country.
My chcemy, żeby Unia Europejska wprowadziła.
We want the European Union to impose a full embargo on all hydrocarbons. Oil is 180 billion a year and coal is 12 billion a year. Tomorrow, the United Nations will vote on suspending the Russian Federation's membership of the United Nations Human Rights Council. A country can be removed from the Council if 2/3 of the 193 United Nations member states vote in favour.
Today, the Sejm dealt with a government bill to effect an embargo on coal imports from Russia. The bill also provides for the possibility of freezing the assets of individuals and entities supporting Russia. In addition, the procedure for assigning PESEL numbers to Ukrainians fleeing the war is to be simplified.
The first is to freeze all assets of economic operators. The second is to suspend all rights to exercise shares in economic operators, all ownership rights. Another element is the exclusion of all such entities from the right to participate in public procurements. One more thing is a ban on entry to Poland for people who are on the sanctions list. The sanctions list will be maintained by the Minister for Internal Affairs and Administration. The Act will also introduce a ban on importing Russian coal to Poland. It also imposes penalties for entities that do not comply with this provision.
The Monetary Policy Council raised all interest rates by 1 percentage point today. As the National Bank of Poland announced in a press release, the reference interest rate rose from 3.5% to 4.5%. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.